made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, True Weight Solutions, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, SCED, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 310 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Rob Scranton, and if you want to become a clinic master, stay tuned. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. We have Dr. Rob Scranton today and my partner, Luke Millette. And just before we open up this awesome interview with Dr. Rob, I'm just going to lay down some ground topics. Is what we do is we protect free speech in chiropractic, and we protect the sacred trust with our mission. And it's a place for free speech in chiropractic. And we love to bring on chiropractors and share their stories, and to be able to feature chiropractors that have been doing things the way that they have chosen as natural healers. And we do support subluxation-based chiropractic and innate intelligence, and we support the messaging of all of that. So with that being said, Dr. Rob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say Dr. Jim, but probably everybody else thinks you're a doctor too, right?
If I counted the emails over the past 10 years on how many times I get Dr. Jim, it'd be a lot. But yeah, where are you coming in from today?
Well, in South Jordan, Utah, which is just one of the many contiguous suburbs of Salt Lake City.
Oh, awesome. So you're in Mountain Time Zone as well.
I am, yes. I'm staring right at the mountains out my window here.
Great. So let's jump right into this with your story. It's one of my favorite parts that we do with our show, and you're episode 310. So that's a lot of chiropractic stories. So would you mind sharing your story with our audience today of what inspired you to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Well, my dad, I remember we were up at the Wisconsin Dells. My first experience with chiropractic started way back then. We were racing these carts around, and my brother got pinched off going around a turn, and it flipped over on him. And my dad freaked out because there was gasoline going all over the pavement, and he just pictured that thing, blowing up or erupting in flames. So it was one of those kind of stories you hear about, the grandmother lifting the car off the baby, or one of those kind of things. I remember my dad running over there and picking up that Can-Am car and flipping it over about a 5-foot fence, and got it off my brother. And the guys that were working there afterwards were like, "Sir, do you realize that thing weighs 500 pounds? And, so it was just one of those adrenaline rush Superman moments. But I think my dad paid a price for that, because he really messed something up in his low back. And, 3 back surgeries later, and the surgeon said, well, we could do a 4th one. And my dad said, well, I played baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. I'm going to do something different. And he got under chiropractic care, and that helped him kind of manage for a long time. But I remember all our family trips, my dad, we bought a Suburban so he could put a mattress in the back and lay flat on his back everywhere we drove all over Illinois, and going to grandma's house and visiting family and friends. And he finally got under a Gonstead chiropractor's care and got very specific, and was able to start playing golf again for the first time in 17 years.
Wow.
And it's funny because my dad, looking back on it now, at the age of 40, probably had the worst health of anybody he knew because of those problems with his back. But now he's at age 80, been under regular chiropractic care probably at least monthly, and more likely probably like an every 2-week basis over the last 40 years. And he's probably in the best health by far of anybody that he knows and any of his friends now at this point, after kind of starting off behind the 8 ball, at the age of 40 with the worst health. Now at 80 has the best health, even with the bad back, issues and so forth. But so I saw that, and And so my dad started, that chiropractor did a good job of telling the chiropractic story and teaching about regular maintenance and spinal hygiene. So he started bringing all three of us, I've got two brothers, three of us to the chiropractor, when we were 8, 10, 12 years old. And I probably been going monthly, most of my life. And when I was living in Chicago, I was working as a financial analyst for the Florsheim Shoe Company. I graduated with a degree in accounting and finance, and I got in a car accident there, and a car hit us and jammed my shoulder up into my arm, and I couldn't raise it more than about this high for about the next 2.5 years, and which was really frustrating because I played volleyball in college and I couldn't even raise my arm anymore. And I went and did all the stuff they suggest, went and got the drugs, the pain relievers, the anti-inflammatories, the muscle relaxers, went through 4 or 5 rounds of physical therapy. And, I still couldn't raise my arm or do anything with it. And a friend of mine said, it's almost like he's talking, a crack deal was going down or something, because he came to me, looked around, and he's like, you know what? I think you ought to go see a chiropractor. Like he didn't want anybody else to hear. I said, a what? Oh yeah, I used to go see those when I was growing up. My dad used those. And I saw this guy. He's like, I don't think it's your shoulder at all. He says, I think in that car accident, you jammed a joint here in your neck where the nerves come out to go to your shoulder, and it's causing the muscles to kind of freeze and lock up. And so this guy, had me back playing volleyball at full speed with no restrictions in about 3 months after 2.5 years of immobility. And I thought, gee, I think I'd like to go help people that way and do that, spend the rest of my life helping people the way that guy helped me, rather than sitting here in a cubicle playing with numbers and spreadsheets the rest of my life. And what was interesting, though, because that was in Chicago, downtown, and he went to National College there in Lombard. And he said, well, you ought to go to chiropractic school then. I said, oh, where did you go? He said, well, I went to National, but you need to learn how to adjust, so you ought to go to Palmer. I'm like, oh, okay. He didn't even want me to go to his alma mater. So I followed his instructions and went to Palmer Chiropractic College. Now, that's just how good a job our profession has done of marketing itself, because I went to high school right across the river in Moline, Illinois, and I had no idea growing up that there was even a chiropractic college in the community, let alone right across the river there, the whole time I was growing up. But yet that's where I ended up moving back home, so to speak, not because I necessarily wanted to, but that guy in Chicago told me that's where I should go to school. So I graduated there, and one of the professors at school said, well, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I said, I have no idea. He said, well, you could come work here if you want. His name was Dr. Willard Smith, and gave me a spot in the back of his office there. I grew enough that about a year later, he was having some health issues and offered to sell the practice and the building to me. And so I went ahead and bought that. But then I kind of ran into, about 12 years of doing that. And as I was getting up, 230, 240 patient visits a week, I was just getting physically worn out. My back, my shoulder, my elbow, my wrist. I'd adjust all week, and then I'd Saturday and Sunday to kind of recover. And I felt like I was barely recovered by Monday, and then I went back and started injuring myself again. And I don't know if this is common, but I think it is with a lot of chiropractors, that after a decade of doing that with, adjusting a lot of bodies, you start questioning, man, how am I going to sustain this long term? Because all I could see was that the only way to make more income was to see more people. And of course, there's only so many hours in a day and so many days in a week and so many hours in a week, and you can't work them all. And so there's definitely a real limitation on there. And I just didn't know what to do. And I knew I needed my body to recover and heal. So I had an opportunity to sell my practice to some guy that had gone to school there in Davenport and married a local gal and moved away. They started having kids, of course, so she wants to move home back to the Quad Cities. Worst idea in the world is to start a practice where there's a chiropractic college, and you're dealing with all the other people that got stuck there when they graduated. and competing for the same patient base there. So I sold that and moved out to Utah, actually, because I got an opportunity. I was offered a chance to coach chiropractors and also to work for a financial firm with my accounting and finance background, and coach chiropractors and, as a financial coach, a financial architect, actually. And they were located out here in Salt Lake City. So I moved out here after doing that for couple of years. I enjoyed it, but I really had an itch to get back, into chiropractic. I felt like I was kind of healed up from a couple of years off. My body had, pretty much recovered, it felt like. And I started reading about these niche type practices. And so I put together with a friend of mine and a mentor of mine, a program called Fibromyalgia Centers of America. It still exists today. And so we were helping people with fibromyalgia through explicitly through chiropractic care and getting a lot of really great results, tapping into one of these niche markets inside of chiropractic. And I thought to myself, gee, there's such an opportunity out here. People in Utah actually have jobs. Everybody in Illinois is either broke or they work for the government. And I thought, well, this would be interesting to try practicing out here. So I found a perfect location in the second fastest growing city in the United States here in South Jordan. And we opened up that practice and just focused nothing on marketing to that niche, just fibromyalgia with all the marketing that we did. And that's probably one of the things that I've enjoyed about chiropractic practice. Probably the most of anything is the kind of science and art of marketing, chiropractic. I got, this idea from a chiropractic mentor of mine that said, "What business are you in, Dr. Scranton?" I said, "Chiropractic." He says, "No, try again. What business are you in?" I said, "Chiropractic." He said, "No, you're in the business of marketing chiropractic services to the general public. And if you're very good at that, then you get a chance and an opportunity to be a chiropractor and help those people and change and impact their lives." It says you need to learn how to market and study it, as often as you possibly could. And I took that to heart, and I found I really, actually really enjoyed it a lot as well. And so just focusing on that marketing, that one niche. I had asked a group that I was, learning from and working with some coaches at the time. I said, "Well, what's your record? What's the biggest first month in the history of your company as far as a new practice and a doctor opening up in collections?" They said, "Oh gosh, I think it was, somewhere north of maybe 25,000. It was quite a bit." I said, "Okay, well, that gives me a target or something to shoot for," because I had no idea what I should have as far as expectations, And so we started marketing that. I was doing spinal screenings and running ads 2 or 3 months ahead of time. And everybody that would call in, I just had my wife answer. I had the phone forwarded to her cell phone before our space was even built out. And so she would answer the phone and she'd say, "Oh yeah, well, let's go ahead and make you an appointment. Our first time we have available is, April 3rd or April 4th. This is like the 1st of February or late January or something." Like, "Wow, is that far out? Is that the first earliest you can get me in?" She said, "Oh yeah, we're much busier than the average clinic." "Oh, okay," which we were, because we were busy putting carpet on the floor and painting walls and, getting equipment ordered and furniture put into the office. So that was a true statement. But we opened up that office. I think we had 73 new patients on the book the first 2 weeks. And we did 55,000 cash collections, in our first 4.5 weeks that we were open. And we were kind of off to the races, after that. And so, in that group, obviously 25,000 was the record. I did 55,000 just because I had a target or something to shoot for, I think. And, word kind of got around like, "Gee, did you hear what did Dr. Scranton do? That's more than most chiropractors ever collect in a month in their entire career." And he did that, the first month, all cash in a place he'd never practiced, in a state he'd never lived in before. We didn't have a single friend or family when he moved there. And so I started having doctors ask me about that. And especially a friend of mine, Dr. Matt Christensen, I think he may be on your show here, down the road here a little bit, because he was moving from Texas to North Dakota. And he said, man, I don't want to grow really slow and take 10 or 20 years to grow a nice practice. I want to do it right away like you did. Can you show me and tell me what you did? And it was pretty easy, right? Because I just told him what I did, and then he just did what I did. And I think he did 60,000 all cash collections the first month, that he was open. And we thought, well, man, I think we have something here. And one of the things we realized, though, is we couldn't sustain that in that old model of chiropractic in growing those practices, just using our hands, laying our hands. We need to figure out how to leverage, our time and our knowledge that we'd accumulated in school and still help a lot of people. And so we started looking into what other niches could we add, because I opened that practice just focusing with that Fibromyalgia Centers of America and Dr. Matt. Then he did the same thing. But then we started adding other niches in, neuropathy and knee pain. And we found we were able to help these people a lot, but we kept searching, buying people's programs and, training course in a box and going to their seminars and, with this promise that everything would be laid out and tell us exactly what to do. And we found, you open the boot camp in a box and, there's nothing but air inside or pretty close to it. They might point to you, well, here's some marketing you can try, or, here's a few pieces of equipment you might want to use. But we're like, no, we're chiropractors. We're too dumb for that. We need, A to Z, not A and B, as far as, protocols and procedures, exactly what to do. We need it laid out. And it just wasn't out there. I mean, we joined 3 or 4 different coaching programs and found everybody promised all this stuff, but they really just didn't have it. So he and I became, good friends and started working and mentoring each other and figured out all these protocols and procedures and what to say and when to say it and what order, what was getting the best result and what marketing was working, the best. And he'd try it and then it would work good. And then I would try it, it would work good. And we'd share this information back and forth. And before long, just like Dr. Matt was asking me, well, what did you do? Can you show me? We started having a lot of members of these other groups asking us, well, what are you guys doing? How are you doing? And then we even had the owners of these consulting companies texting us and asking us what we're doing and if we could show their members what we're doing. And we thought,
you've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, True Weight Solutions, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, SCED, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
Well, gee, we're paying these guys to tell us how to do this stuff that they're asking us to show them and to teach their members. Maybe we ought to just be, maybe we ought to just step out there. I never had any intention of starting a coaching or a consulting or mentoring or management program or whatever you want to call any of those things. Other than that, we just saw the real need in people asking us, and the people that were the gurus and supposed to be teaching us, were all sizzle and no steak. And we wanted to provide both because we realized as chiropractors, that's what you need. We've been to enough seminars where, you go to get your CE credits and you sit there and look at your phone the whole weekend, get nothing out of it, absolutely zero, except some CE credits. And then there's the seminars you go to, and man, the guys are amazing talkers and speakers, and they tickle the heck out of your ears, and you feel so good about yourself as a chiropractor, and you're walking on air, and you get back to the office on Monday, and there's just really nothing to implement or to help move you forward or progress your practice, your clinic. And so we decided we want to put on a 2-day boot camp that is just nothing but straight content the entire weekend, that we can literally train these doctors. There's going to be no fluff. There's not going to be 15 different vendors walking out on stage all there to sell people stuff the entire weekend, or a bunch of blowhards there, talking about stuff that they've never actually, done themselves, or trying to teach marketing strategies that worked 20 years ago before the internet existed, or this kind of stuff. we wanted to teach doctors, and give them a seminar that would be the exact seminar that we would want to go to ourselves as doctors, that would be impactful, that would be no wasted time, that would allow us to get back to our offices on Monday and make a significant impact in our patients' lives and in our lives, personally, professionally, and financially, and get everything that we needed. So that's why we ended up creating this company called Clinic Masters. We launched it about 11 months ago with boot camps, and then we started offering coaching because a lot of the doctors were asking for that. They're like, yeah, that you gave us everything we needed in a weekend, but I'd like to be able to bounce questions off you or ask you about things, or when I become unsure or doubtful or confused, be able to reference that back or be able to go watch those videos again. And so we have an online training portal that's built out that any doctor can go back and watch any of our boot camps and rewatch, relearn, go through the experience that they already had sitting through that boot camp live, or some that will want to join and start training before they ever come to a boot camp. So when they get to the boot camp, it's almost more like finishing school than just learning stuff for the very first time. And so they can really refine, the processes and what they're doing. And so myself and Dr. Matt, that's what we're doing. He's still practicing full time in order to run this business as big as it's gotten and as many members as we have that we're coaching. I ended up selling my practice, if you can believe that, right at the beginning of COVID, when we first started talking about starting this management and consulting company. But I had a doctor that actually wanted to buy my practice. So I sold it for nearly twice what I sold my first practice. So I've gotten pretty good at that. That's a rare thing to be able to sell your chiropractic practice. I had no idea because I'd done it twice. But as we started researching and investigating it, there's only something like 10% of all small businesses that ever exist that will ever be able to be sold. So a lot of these chiropractors, they're telling us that, well, I'm just going to work my practice, and then my retirement will be selling my practice and I'll just live off of that. When the reality is that 90% of them will never be able to sell that practice, because by the time they decide that they want to, it'll be because of health reasons or age or what have you. They'll be selling it in the twilight of their career when that practice is actually declining and dying, and their office and their office equipment and furniture and everything is so outdated, it'll all need to be replaced, and their practice is a dying entity on top of it. So I've got a little experience, doing that a couple different times. But Dr. Matt and myself have both owned $1 million a year clinics for multiple years at this point. In fact, Dr. Matt is, I don't think he's been under $150,000 a month in collections in the first year. And I don't say that to brag or to puff ourselves up, but we've actually done this stuff that we're teaching and telling doctors, so they're able to go implement, because they know that we're not we're not at all averse to sharing our stats and our software, our chiropractic management software, letting anybody come in there and look at it that wants to see that we're not BSing people or blowing smoke up their butt. I don't know any other consultant or practice management that's ever done that. Most of the time because they don't have it to show anybody in the first place. But we think that's important because we really believe that you have to buy the messenger before you can buy the message, in the first place. And so I don't want doctors, because I've done that myself. You go to a seminar or boot camp and I sit there the first half of the day with my arms crossed and folded, trying to figure out if this guy is worth listening to, or if he's full of baloney, or if he's got anything valuable to say. So we just hit him right that first 10 minutes of our boot camp, say, hey, here's what we've done. If you're not already doing this, you might want to listen, because we have doctors ask us that all the time. Well, what do you guys got to teach me? I've been to everything and been everywhere and been to every seminar on the planet. What am I going to learn from you guys? And I'm on the phone there sometimes with Dr. Matt. He said, well, have you collected $200,000 in a month before? Well, no. And he said, well, you probably got some things we can teach you then. And it's funny because some of those guys with the rough, hard, exterior, I get it, because they've been in this practice 20 years. They've probably been burned and beat down and run over by so many different people that tried to take advantage of them or have, that they get a little jaded. And so it's, we tell people, hey, you should be suspicious or concerned if this stuff is real and what we're telling you is the truth, because you've got good reason to from your experience, in our profession. So that's kind of where we're at today, Jim. And, our mission is to help take 1,000 chiropractors over the next 3 years to over $1 million a year in collections. We just want to raise and elevate the whole stature of this profession. We see far too many chiropractors make far too little for far too long. And, we want, children around the United States to point to the chiropractors in their community and say, man, I don't know what that guy does, but I'd like to do what he does, or they know that he's a chiropractor and say, man, I like that guy's lifestyle and that car he drives and how he carries himself. I want to be a chiropractor someday. And, if we're living in poverty and fear all the time, it's really tough for people to aspire to that. Why aren't we getting the guys that are, applying to medical school instead of only getting the people going to our schools that either, like myself, had no idea if chiropractor made $1 million a year or $20,000 a year. I had a chiropractic miracle experience that changed my life. So I just knew I wanted to go help people. But the other thing we get in our profession a lot is people that couldn't make it into medical school, couldn't even make it into physical therapy school. And so chiropractic kind of becomes a default, profession for them, almost. And so we want to help change these doctors' lives, like we said, personally, professionally, and financially long-term, and give them that lifestyle for their family. Because I think, chiropractors, for what we do and the impact we have on society, we get compensated far too little in relation to how much good we do with so little cost. I mean, when we think of our hands and the miracles they can perform, I just don't think we're rewarded and compensated, the way that I believe that we should be, at least anyways. And so, that's kind of where we're at and why it's, kind of some big goals, but we really believe that, if a couple of country hicks that came from nothing like us can implement this system and have these kind of results consistently, and now we're teaching these other docs and we're seeing them, meet or exceed our goals. We're not doing this to shine the light on us. This is not about our egos. This is about the doctor's results, and we're seeing these doctors repeat our results and do even better. And we celebrate that. And that's exciting. I think that's really, the most fun I've had in chiropractic is seeing these doctors that are stuck in an insurance model, making $12,000 a month for 10 years. And, spending evenings 3 or 4 hours writing reports and, writing notes, and spending a Saturday or two every single month, the entire day, filling out notes and documenting things to get those $12,000 in scraps the insurance companies will give them. And then coming to our boot camps and 6 months later, collecting $65,000 a month or more, with 90% of that being all cash, and scheduling vacations and trips to Disneyland and buying their own buildings, and just all these things that they would never have ever dreamed of or, anticipated that was even possible in their chiropractic career. And that's just been super rewarding and just really a lot of fun.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left. So, what are 3 big things that you teach in this program? What does it cost, and where can they buy it?
What are 3 big things? So we teach people how to value their services, because ultimately for people to open up their pocketbooks, they have to believe and see that what they're going to be getting is far more valuable than what they're giving up, monetarily in order to receive that. And so that's a lot of what we teach the doctors. If, people are saying no to your treatment recommendations, whether those are $600, $900 treatment recommendations or $8,000, if they're saying no, it's really almost always because you haven't shown the value in what you're doing, or they're not perceiving that or seeing that. So we really show the doctors how to overcome that, from going through the correct kind of consultation and examination that shows them that you found their problem, what's wrong with them, and they're very eloquently explaining to them what the very obvious and only solution is. And in fact, with one of our treatment programs, the knee pain treatment program, we offer to do a test treatment result that gets almost instant results. It's the closest thing to a miracle in chiropractic that I've ever done, where you have people just literally like, I mean, they can't believe you get that, emotional reaction one time, and you better record it. But at that point, it's not about selling anybody anything or using pressure tactics to get people to, open up their wallet. They're just wanting and desiring to purchase a result that they've already experienced at that point. And so that's one of the things. And, teaching them then how to manage their staff. We have a full CA training boot camp that we really believe, humbly so, is probably the best in the profession. We've been told that multiple times by our doctors, that their CAs get back to the office and they are different human beings and operate in a totally different way. But you really have to have that. If you're going to leverage your time and have a staff-driven practice, they have to be trained in extremely, high level in order to do that. So how to collect cash, how to have a staff that's trained not by you, the doctor, but by somebody else, because they'll accept it better and they'll buy into it more than if the doctor's there badgering them and micromanaging them, all the time. I think you asked for 3. That was 2. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble coming up with that third one, Luke.
That's okay. Where can people get it, and what kind of investment would they be making to get these services?
Yeah, so they can call Susan Knight. Let me just grab her phone number real quickly. Or they can go to Clinic Masters at clinic-masters.com. Or they can call our onboarding specialist, Susan. Her phone number is 801-949-0962. I would encourage people to do that just to see if it's a right fit for them or not. We're really not believers in just taking people's money for the fact of taking it. We've seen that happen to us too many times in chiropractic, where we shouldn't have paid for or signed up for something. It just wasn't the right time for us or the right life space for us. But there's 2 different ways people can really get involved. They can just come to just a boot camp. That's all they're obligated to. Or they could come there and decide, yes, I really like what these guys are doing. I like what they're up to. And I want to join their coaching. Or they could just join the coaching. You get some significant discounts coming to the boot camps if you're already a private coaching group, member of ours. But Susan can do a really good job of helping the doctors find the best fit for them and going over the different cost structures and coaching levels and that sort of stuff. It's probably far too much to get into on the time we have left in our conversation here today on that. But she can really go over that. And she is a huge advocate for chiropractors. She wants to see these doctors succeed. There's no question off limits. She'll answer everything that they might come up with or have any questions about.
Awesome. So the website is clinic-masters.com, or they can call 801-949-0962.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Rob, I want to thank you for being our guest today. I know this was really insightful for people who just need somewhere to turn.
Well, thanks for having me guys on. I really appreciate what you're doing for the profession and giving doctors a voice to tell their stories. It's always interesting to hear every one of our doctors. It's funny that you have that, because we have what we call a discovery call for new doctors when they onboard, and we always want to know their story about how they became a chiropractor and how that came about, because there's so many interesting stories for sure. So thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, Dr. Rob, thank you for being our guest today. You're episode 310 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. And it's really exciting to have your story on as a part of the tapestry that we're weaving with the chiropractic story. And I think a lot of people are going to find some value from what you shared today. It was not only insightful, but it was quite humorous at a couple of times, because you have a really interesting way of telling stories. And I think it's good for people to have that type of interaction with you. And it's really cool to hear that you're out there close to me in Utah. I'm 25 miles from the Utah border, and maybe we make a day sometime where I can come out there to Salt Lake City and visit.
Especially if you ski. It's coming up here soon.
It is skiing season.
Jim is an excellent skier.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, maybe you'll have to wait for me at the bottom.
Awesome, Rob. Well, we just want to appreciate you once again for being our guest today, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Dr. Rob. Thank you.
Talk soon. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.